Hello, it's Benjamin here. I'm just starting out here, and I'd like to show you some quick tips on Ultimaker Cura and where the download is. I'm trying to start off some tutorials for YouTube, maybe. As you can see here on my screen, this is the website, the Ultimaker Cura 5.10 download. You can download it for free. It'll ask you all your different versions that you want. I've got the win64.exe, and this is what it looks like when you open it. Or I just wanted to go through a couple things when you're first starting out your 3D printing adventure. It's going to ask you to add a printer here. So I've got my Ender 3 that I use for, I used my Ender 3 when I first started. I started Ultimaker Cura with it. That was about 7 years ago. I've been 3D printing ever since. I've got it now Bamboo Lab software, but you would go in here, add your printer. Since I'm using an Ender, it'd be a non-Ultimaker printer. I'm going to go down here to the non-network printers because it doesn't hook up to a network. You can go ahead and type in your printer here. Mine is the Ender 3. It's also referencing the Ender 3 V2, which is not the one I have. Mine's quite a bit older than that one, so you would just add that here. I've already got it added, so I won't go ahead and do that, but here's the information here. One of the first prints that everybody really goes through is the 3D Benchy, which is just this little boat mechanic here. A couple of the base features of this, you can go to different views here on the bottom left. You can change the name here. You can look at an item list of all the STL files in your item. If you right click, you can hold and you can move your mouse around to be able to rotate around your part. If you scroll, you zoom in and out. If you left click on your STL file here, you can go ahead and move it coordinate wise, or you can just hold an axis and move it according to that. I'm going to go ahead and put that back at 0. You can change your scale here at the left side of the screen here. It's at 100% scale. That's what they drew it to. It should do uniform scaling, which means it's going to, if I go ahead and put 200% here, it's going to increase all of the dimensions by 200%. Most of the time I don't really like using the scale feature. Some things, picturesque things I guess, but functional things that I make, I don't normally use the uniform scale or any type of scaling for that stuff. You've got your rotation, you can go and click and drag. You can also orient here and snap rotation. It should snap down to the build plate as you're doing it, but sometimes it's a little tricky to get it to snap back if it's out of rotation there. You've got mirroring, you've got mesh type, and I haven't really done much with the support blockers. Some of the base features, so as you open this, you can go in here. These are a lot of the parameters for starting out on Ultimaker Cura. This hamburger menu bar here, you can go to basic. Basic is what it normally sets you off at, but if you feel that you need a little bit more tweaking that you want on your prints, you can start assigning advanced or expert situations here, but I'm just going to stay on basics for now. You've got quality, your walls, your top and bottom layers, your infill, your material, speeds, travel, cooling, support, build plate adhesion, and dual extrusion. Typically your first printer is not going to have anything that's dual extrusion. My Ender doesn't have anything like that. I typically like to stay in this quality tab. You can override it. A lot of times you just want to get to different qualities here, these standard qualities. I prefer to just stay with that. I wouldn't go much further down than that 0.16 millimeters though. That's what I don't normally go all the way down to. It just makes your print a lot longer, and there's not much of a difference from the 0.16 to 0.12. You get a little better of a print, but then you get a little bit more of the swelling effect on the bottom layers here. You can also adjust the quality manually here and have your manual calculated answer here. I typically just stay with the typical ones I don't typically change the walls or top or bottom layers. Um, the infill is a big change that a lot of times you're going to want to change what your infill is. There's a lot of different options here. Typically, I go for grid, or I do the triangles. Cubic's okay. There's a lot more advanced patterns on here as well, but I don't typically go for any of those. When you're first starting out, I would typically go infill, and you probably want grids to start out with. It's probably the most durable, I would say, out of them. Triangles is probably right there next to it. I've got typically my infill rate is about 25%. I don't like to go more than that or too much less than that. At 25%, you're getting a lot of air gap in your prints, and it won't be as structurally sound as maybe you'll want. You can also save a lot of filament by reducing that. I've done prints up to 40% when I'm trying to make something very durable. 40% seems to work. It holds quite a bit of weight as PLA. One of the other things you're typically going to change is your material. It's automatically set for PLA. That's most likely to be used on your FDM printers. There are the exceptions of the other printers. You're going to want to not really adjust much of anything else. You have your supports. Typically when I do supports, the normal supports, they work, but you're going to have weird lines on it. As you do support, you'll have weird things that you'll need to refinish after you print. I typically like going tree supports on everything, and I like to do touching the build plate. I don't really prefer it to be in the middle of the print. It's really hard to get out of little spots on the print, so I prefer it to be somewhere I can access it easily. So I like to make sure my supports are placed on the build plate. I don't typically change the overhang angle on there too often. And then you have build plate adhesion. You typically don't have to worry about this right off the bat. I've had prints that bow real bad on the print bed, and I've had to actually switch to the raft style or the brim. The skirt it's just going to do a pass around the outside of it. It's just going to do one single layer and just do, I think it's like 5 millimeters away from it on the outside of your print. It's just going to make a line on it. That adhesion, I like to use the skirt when I first started because I would level my Ender 3 manually, and because I was manually leveling the print, it was easy for me to see where I was going to have flaws. So it helped me level it as it did the skirt. So I like to keep the skirt in there for my Ender 3. That's about all I have for you when you're first starting out. I wish you the best of luck. Once you have your parameters set here, you have your nozzle. I've got the standard nozzle here, the standard PLA here. Nothing's really changed, so I'm going to go ahead and slice. Slicing is actually going to generate your code for your machine. As long as you've got the correct machine up on the top left and you've got your nozzle correct, all your parameters are set and your STL files there, you slice it and it's going to want to save directly to a removable device. If you go ahead and click it, it will immediately save it to whatever USB drive you have in there. It does not care what USB it is, it will save it directly to it. And then you'll have this eject feature so that you can eject it right away. For my Ender 3, I've got the micro SD chip for this, so I have a USB that has the micro USB port in it, so I have to plug in the micro SD chip into the port, and then I have it on this removable device, and then I save it, I eject the device, and then I plug in the micro USB chip right into my printer, and I can start my print right then and there. I haven't had much issues with Ultimaker Cura with my Ender 3. It's done 7 great years, and I'm still running it quite often. A lot of lithophane pictures. I'm doing a lot of different projects. It's a great printer to start out, but I do recommend the Bamboo Lab printers. They're a little bit more user-friendly. They've got the auto-bedded features. They've got a lot of extra features. You have to pay extra for them, but they have a lot better features, so you'll be able to do a lot more things with it, and you won't have to worry about manually leveling the print bed like I've had to do. I think that's it for what I've got, so thank you guys for watching. See you later.